Hi, my name is Jay Morgan Hirons, and this is a brief introduction to my new podcast series, Alternate Realities. I'm so excited to be making this podcast series. It's only been a couple of months in the making, but I have some really interesting people that have agreed to come on the show as my guests, and I'm so excited to interview them, and I hope you enjoy listening to the interviews as much as I know that I'm going to enjoy making them. Just a little bit of background as to how this podcast came. It's kind of a weird, meanderer. It's like having a big river that I've meandered along for some years now. But when I was in my mid-40s, I had a bit of a hissy fit at work one day. Call it a midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. And I decided, that's it. I don't want to work for anybody anymore. I'm going to go and do a diploma in life coaching and work for myself. Off I go. I duly sign up for the course. I passed the diploma. And that should have been it, really. Except it wasn't, because my mind had been stimulated by studying, and circumstances had meant that I had left school when I was very young, hadn't gone to university or done a lot of the things that maybe I could have done. And there's a very interesting thing that happens when you do something because you want to do it. You put probably 10 times the effort into something that you do because you have to do it, because your interest, your mind is into it. So we're going to talk through this introduction about mind, body and spirit. So my mind was stimulated, and one diploma turned into 10 years of studying, and I enjoyed everything that I put my heart and soul into at that time. I went back to college and I retrained in massage, did 2 years at college, became a Reiki master, trained in so many different aspects of holistic health, even Ayurveda. I studied a bit of Ayurveda. It was just incredible. The psychology side of things, the mind, body and the spirit, which is so important when you're looking at holistic health. Unfortunately, though, being an ordinary person, I had to fund these studies, and that meant that I was working full-time, more or less, and I was more or less studying full-time as well, which didn't leave a lot of other time. So there wasn't the time to go to the gym and take care of my body in quite the same way. I can't say that my diet was as good as it should be, and all of those other things. Nevertheless, we in holistic health know that when there is dis-ease in the body, disease manifests. And I manifested something that unfortunately went undiagnosed, and I was left to get pretty sick before anything was done about it. And that had a very traumatic effect on my body. I was in hospital for 3 weeks, and, it was a pretty difficult one. 6 months plus physical recovery. Then I would say even today, I'm not at all ashamed to say that I'm still getting over the mind part of that trauma. And then 30 months later, I had a stress cardiomyopathy and a cardiac arrest. Now, that wasn't as traumatic. It sounds like it was pretty dramatic, which it was, and certainly the crash team did a fantastic job. And I can honestly say I'm quite disappointed, and so are most of my friends and people that know me, that I didn't go anywhere. So there was no white light, there was no conversations with people that are passed over, there was no near-death experience in the way that we read about these things. Obviously I wasn't ready to go anywhere, but that part is a little bit disappointing, and maybe I'll find someone to interview with regards to an NDE for the podcast. That would be quite cool, actually, I'm sure. So I knew at the end of that I was going to have to take a long journey into putting myself back together again. And I'm used to being a bit of Wurzel Gummidge. I'm much more of a Wurzel Gummidge than I am an Aunt Sally, and I've worn different hats over the years. I'm known as a Falklands widow, had been a dancer, been a competitive bodybuilder up to national level. All these things I've done over the years. I've now started doing public speaking a couple of years ago. So, in all of those different hats that I've worn, they've all taken their adaptability, but this was very different because I was completely and utterly broken. Mind, body and spirit were completely as broken as they could be. I was absolutely on the floor when this happened. So I knew it was going to need a slow recovery, and I was prepared for that to happen. And that I had to take care of each different aspect of me. My mind had to recover, my body had to recover, and my spirit certainly had to recover. And my spirit had been broken when I was a child, so, it didn't take as much to break, as the rest of me. But in that journey, there was that question in my head, what now? I can't go back to doing, in fact, we can't go back. I love that whole Eckhart Tolle thing, the power of now. We cannot go back. So what was I going to do going forward? Well, I started to write. I did a couple of blogs and then finally got around to writing. I scrapped everything I'd written before and wrote the book that I'd been meaning to write since I was 28. That's now published. Became a public speaker, which is something I never thought in a million years that I would ever do. I was quite happy teaching people in private, when it came to school kids in the gym, but please don't ask me to get up on a stage. So there was all these new things coming into my life, and it's been quite a journey. Really has been quite a journey. And so a couple of months ago, having done a couple of interviews this year, suddenly throughout lockdown, when there's all this time to think, I realised that actually I know and I have met some incredible people along the way, and some wonderful people have agreed to be on the podcast. So I'm so excited about that. But the thing that I've really realised more than anything about life is that most people appear to be quite ordinary on the outside. Most people are not the Queen of England or a celebrity that is in Hollywood. Most people lead what appears to be quite ordinary lives, and yet very often they are quite extraordinary people. So I'm hoping that the podcast is going to bring you some really interesting stories of people's lives, and that through looking at it with the lens of mind, body and spirit, that we can bring out that extraordinariness that exists in all of us. And I hope you really enjoy the series. Look out for the first episode, which will be out really soon. And I thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to interviewing some incredible people. So take care all, and don't forget to subscribe when it's all online.